Welcome back, everyone. We're coming at you with another episode of the Memo. You got Matt Brodsky, Alex Masados, and Richard Lyons. We're coming fresh off the NFL draft. Rounds 4 through 7 were yesterday, which was Saturday, as the time of this recording. So, what we want to talk about first, like we mentioned last week before we did our own mock draft, the NFL draft was virtual this year, and I think it was, even besides seeing where the players end up, that was one of the more intriguing things going into the weekend. So I want to ask you guys, what did you guys, first impressions off the top of your head? Do you like the virtual format? Just a quick comment. Apparently some coaches and executives said for the future they'd like to lean more towards this format when doing stuff like this. It gives them more time at home. They realize how much they can actually get done from their homes instead of being at the facilities 24/7. So yeah, do you think it'll have any future impact, and what did you think about it?
Yeah. I enjoyed it. It was very well executed. There were no technical issues that was being reported on before the draft. It was just like a regular draft. Just nobody was there in person. It was cool. I thought it was cool. It was different. It was cool to see the players in their homes reacting with their families. Because we've gotten so used to the players that are there at the draft, and it's kind of like a canned response to being drafted. Like, you go up, you shake the commissioner's hand, you wear the hat, you take a picture, you get like a little bit of interview, and then you go sit down. And now it's like you got so much different stuff in there. Like, you got Becton getting very emotional, and that guy Ruiz was hysterically crying, and
yeah, it's harder to hold all that in when you're home.
Yeah, and obviously I'm focusing more on the Jets draft picks, but Mims seemed pretty heated that he slipped as far as he did.
And he went to the Jets.
Yeah. I thought it was cool. I thought it was great. I thought it was well executed, and they shattered viewership records like we all said that they probably would. So overall, great success for the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought it was interesting, and it was fun to see a different type of draft. Moving forward, I don't know how much you could take away from it and implement in the future drafts. Obviously, the NFL will never forego a venue of having people get together, taking over an entire city, and having all the festivities in person. That will just always be a thing. It's just so much money involved for the league. But I do think, or I hope at least, that there's some ways that they can modernize it with the technology and make it a little bit easier for people to communicate. I know, like Alex said, some coaches preferred this kind of setup, and I think it forced them to be a little bit simpler in their decision making and their communication, instead of having all these different people in their ear making decisions. These war rooms we see on TV in past years have 10, 15, 20 people in there. I can imagine how chaotic it is if there's a disagreement. So it kind of just streamlined the process, and you had your owner, your GM, your head coach ultimately making decisions. And one thing also that I thought was interesting, and I'm not sure if it's given the format of the virtual aspect to it, or if it just is how it would have played out either way. It's tough to tell, but there really weren't that many trades in the first round. Trades started picking up in the later rounds with every pick. I looked on the ESPN thing, and every pick seemingly came from somewhere else, and everyone is doing different things. But the first round, there really was only one or two trades that came late in the round. And I'm curious, I don't think we'll ever have the answer, if that's a result of teams being hesitant to worry about that so much and communicating with other GMs. But I feel like it probably had some impact.
I kind of disagree with that, because I think the draft, it was a very deep draft, but the top half of the draft was almost very you look at all the mocks, they pretty much got the top 15 right. Maybe a little bit out of order. A player goes here, a player goes there, but the same players that were really expected to go in the top half of the draft. Mostly, obviously, a guy falls here and there. But I feel like teams were just...
But that's what I'm saying, because that usually doesn't happen.
But I feel like teams were just kind of like, I'd rather have this player. And when they're trading back in all the later rounds, when you have less time to pick, they have enough time to communicate there and make all those decisions. So I don't see why there would be an issue in the first round. And then there were trades that went down maybe early in the draft. I mean, they already did a mock draft to simulate it, but maybe early in the draft, teams weren't, used to how it was operating, so they were kind of getting the feel of it. And then after some picks go by, you're like, okay, like this is how it's going to go.
Right.
But I just feel like teams didn't get the offers they wanted, and there were players on the board that they viewed as can't miss. So that's why you don't see the first trade until, 13 or 14? Yeah, the Tampa Bay traded up one spot with the 49ers.
Right.
It was the first trade of the day.
Right. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if it's related to that at all. It's just you usually in past drafts see a lot of teams, moving around. There's a surprise, like top 10, top 15 people are moving, and even like mock drafts are never usually accurate. So I feel like it might have had something to do with it, but it could have just been one of those years where the board fell how the board fell. And something like, we'll obviously never know the impact that the virtualness had on that part of it, but it was interesting how it unfolded.
Yeah, I think, like I said before with the top 15, you have Burrow, number 1. You had Tua in there. All 4 offensive tackles went in the top 15. CeeDee Lamb fell out of the top 15, surprisingly, but Ruggs and Judy both go in the top 15. Derek Brown, Isaiah Simmons, all of these players that we've been expecting to go, Okudah, Young, like we all knew they were going. The first 3 picks were a lock for months now.
And then you're seeing reports the day before that these GMs are saying that everyone's mock draft this year is so incorrect. They've never seen more inaccurate.
Yeah.
Like, shit's gonna get crazy.
That was just
There's
a bunch of smoke there.
How many?
It's so weird.
I think like 8 of the top 10 players were probably most of the time mocked in the top 10.
C.J. Henderson to Jacksonville was the only surprise that I had in the first 10 picks.
You got 2 of the top O linemen in the top 10, Thomas and Wills. Then Young, Tua, Okudah, Burrow, Simmons. It's all this Brown, Derek Brown. Like, it's all the same guys that we've been seeing this whole time. So that's why I don't know if the virtual was scaring teams off of trades. I think it's just that it was that type of draft. There was a lot of great players. It's a deep draft. See, it's kind of like contradictory what I'm about to say, but it's like that you want to stay in the top 10 to grab these top guys, but then in a draft like this that's so deep in the later rounds, you want to trade down to get more picks to hit that that lottery kind of with all. I'd rather have sense. Yeah. So it's like you do want to trade down, but you also don't at the same time.
Yeah, it's all about just assessing the value at your pick. Can I get this position here? Like, how much is this player going to affect my team? Like, can I pick another position where the talent is like limited and maybe grab someone who's also really good with my like later picks? That balancing act is really hard, and the teams that I think the best teams in the NFL do that balancing act really well. And it's like, it's not easy at all.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, when the Jets are about to be on the board at 48 and Denzel Mims is there, and then before they're even up, they trade down 11 spots, and Mims is pretty much the only top receiver left that a lot of fans were really familiar with. And then he's there at 59, and they pick him. Like that. It's stuff like that is what, those are the gambles that good GMs take and win. Sometimes you lose, but that's a type, like a situation like that where you trade down and it still falls your way. You got to be able to, kind of foresee that.
Yeah, as it stands right now, that seems like a pretty brilliant move by Joe Douglas. But I guess this is a good segue into the Jets draft.
Well, one more thing, and I know we're going to talk a lot about the Jets draft. I wanted to just mention once about the whole virtual aspect of it. I I loved seeing Roger Goodell in his basement,
In his house.
just
My
like
dad.
fucking around and just like letting loose a little bit, chilling on his couch. It was like a side of him we've never seen before, and I thought he was very funny at most of the points.
I feel like he kind of won people over a little bit.
Yeah,
Like,
he was funny.
Roger Goodell. I feel like there's always been this side of him. Like everyone wants to hate him, but like you kind of like love to hate him, and he definitely seems like a likable guy. He's definitely the most powerful commissioner in
for sure.
all of sports.
He really doesn't do that much wrong.
Well,
I liken it to being like the president. Like nobody is gonna love you. Like people are always gonna hate you for some shit. Like love you for other shit.
yeah, he's polarizing. When you're the head of you're the top guy, like people are gonna hate
sports.
you. They're gonna blame you for everything that they don't like. Like
Right.
you're the figurehead for it. But I mean, he's definitely had his missteps along the way in terms
For
of
sure.
like appropriate suspensions and things like that.
Yeah, that's been his biggest,
For sure.
probably, area.
But
that he fucks
just
up.
from like his personality standpoint, I've always seen him as like he's like this super buttoned up guy who's just like kind of, at least from what I've seen, is like bland, and he like doesn't really speak out much, or doesn't you don't know much about him aside from being the commissioner of the NFL. And just to see him like kicking back in his chair and like laughing at the people on TV and wearing a T-shirt on Saturday, like it was
chilling
just
in
like
his chair.
it's kind of funny.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, it was nice to see him like be a little human.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
people
was
also
definitely an underrated winner of the draft.
Yeah, people
Roger
also
Goodell.
don't think about, what the commissioner actually deals with on a day-to-day basis. Like, if a player in that
it's an
does
impossible job.
yeah, if a player, a notable player, does something wrong, like he has to figure out how does this not make us look bad? Like, what do I do to make sure we're not like? He has to think of every single player in the league, like keeping this brand alive.
Oh, his job is so difficult.
And teams like when the Saints got fucked over with the pass interference, like I'm sure people were screaming for Goodell's head. Why? Like what's he gonna do?
What is he supposed
really
to
can't
do?
do anything. But like they're like he's the commissioner. He has to
Yeah.
That's what it comes with.
Yeah, and the NFL, the amount of money, like he's the head of like a multi-billion-dollar like entity. I don't think it's a company, but whatever it is, like running that and all the complications of like dealing with the government and like dealing with private companies, which are the teams and players and fans. Like it's such a wide reaching thing, and there's
Just
a lot of
imagine-
pressure on him to do a good job.
Imagine how difficult it was just to even put this draft together on short notice, having to like get all of the technology
Yeah.
in order and like work with NFL Network and ESPN and get all of the equipment set up and all the GMs. They could have pushed it back and like reassess things on a better timeline, but thank you, Goodell, for putting this out for us, and it was very enjoyable.
Yeah, I wanna commend the NFL for like sticking to the draft date and then giving us a really good product, because the fact that we were able to experience it and there were no hiccups means that there was just so much thought going into everything behind the scenes, which is like, it's amazing. They really did a great job here.
And I think it's interesting that going into it, a lot of us were thinking and looking forward to how are they going to pull this off? What's it going to be like? And I personally, and this is a compliment, what I'm about to say, I didn't feel a difference. Like it felt like the normal draft, which I think is a compliment. Like I didn't. But aside from when they're asking Mel Kiper something and then he answers like 10 seconds later, 'cause it's a little delayed. Like that's the only thing you notice about it. I didn't really like even think about how the players usually go on stage. I didn't think about any like the analysts or any of that stuff. Like it just felt like the draft, and I felt like I was watching the normal draft, which I think
it wasn't that weird. Even in regular drafts, you have players that are not at the venue and they're like at home and they cut to them and stuff.
So I actually wanted to say something about that. So obviously, like you said, they're not going to switch from doing it at venues, and like, they're going to do it at Vegas in 2022 now to like bring it back there, and they're always going to do that. But maybe this opened the opportunity for having more of those players who don't get invited to the live draft, like to get those cameras in those houses and like be able to get more feeds of more players aside. I know they already kind of do that, but maybe now they know the setup and like know how to deal with it, so they can send them out to more.
Right.
I mean, a guy got drafted in the first round, and I don't think they were ready for him to be drafted. Arnett, was it Damien Arnett or something?
Yeah, the Raiders.
The Raiders, and they like didn't have a camera for him, right? Or
I don't remember that, but I know he definitely was not mocked in round one very often.
Yeah, so maybe we'll see.
Maybe it also convinces or lets more players are going to want to just stay home. Seeing how nice it looked for like them to be with their families and everything. Maybe you have guys who are invited that just opt to stay home more often. Could be something to keep an eye on. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think we all agree it was a really good product that they put together, and there wasn't much of a, like, hiccups along the way from the virtual aspect.
Hey, look, I know the draft is required, but hey, NBA, take a page out of that instead of a horse competition. Put together a nice, real.
That's what I wanted to say is the NFL. I feel like with the draft, the NFL proved, like, we're the best operating league like out there.
Hands down.
You can't fuck with us.
Yeah,
and I mean, it's
NBA pushed their draft back.
Yeah, it's a little like off topic to talk about. Not off topic, but like you have to be the best operating to run football teams. That's the hardest team, I think, to build in any sport. So
it's the biggest.
It's not surprising that the football organizations know the best about tough operations.
Yeah, that's true. It's the biggest teams, biggest stadiums. It's a lot of moving parts in the NFL, so they have I'm sure they have some really experienced and talented people pulling strings behind the scenes.
Yeah, I'm happy. We're just, like we said, we're all just happy we got it. We needed something. And now what we're going to do is talk about these picks for the next however many months until if we ever see them play this season. But yeah, the draft I thought was a home run, but not every team hits a home run. There was a lot of questionable stuff in this draft, and a lot of great stuff. Some teams are very happy, as there are every year. But I don't know. What do you guys want to? Would you rather start with some question marks, or do you want to maybe talk about some things you like?
Some takeaways from the draft. You guys are the draft experts here. When you look back on the last couple of days, what sticks out in your guys' mind the most?
Well, for me, the biggest thing that I walked away from the draft with, just the quarterbacks and kind of where they fell. Teams that I thought needed quarterbacks, like the Patriots, not taking quarterbacks, and then teams that I did not think would ever want to draft a quarterback, like the Packers, picking one in the first round. So there were just a lot of like teams, like even the Jaguars, thought that they could use an early quarterback maybe to give them some insurance. And then a team like the Eagles, who I didn't think would take a quarterback, taking one in the second round too. So it's just like, it was weird where some of the mid-round quarterbacks fell. And I don't know where the Patriots or Packers go from here. They seem, the Patriots are like overly confident with Jarrett Stidham for some reason. And I don't know where that's coming from. He's never played before. He's like a 5th-round pick last year. And then the Packers have the best quarterback arguably of all time from a talent perspective, and they're picking his replacement when he's only 36 years old. So that definitely shocked me.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier, I was shocked how far Lamb ended up falling, all the way to 19, and even the Cowboys picking him in general. When they were approaching that pick, in my head I was kind of like, putting Lamb on that offense, I'm sure they have other needs, but putting Lamb in that offense makes them almost unstoppable if Dak can operate well enough. And he falls all the way there. They pick him when they could have maybe picked the safety or gone defense, whatever. So I thought that was surprising. Henry Ruggs being the first receiver taken after the whole year everyone's talking about Judy and Lamb. There's always that's why, look, going into the draft, Jets at 11, a lot of people are starting to say, all 4 offensive tackles are going to be gone. But there's always a curveball, always something surprising. And I know Ruggs was after the Jets picked, but just stuff like that where, a team you do not expect to draft a certain player. Like, I'm sure the Cardinals didn't think Isaiah Simmons would be there, but he falls to them. A lot of people think they could draft an offensive tackle, and they say, no, Isaiah Simmons is there.
For sure. And then there comes a point where you might have team needs, but if there's nobody available there that you feel comfortable with, you need the Cowboys need a safety. But if they don't think whoever's available, Xavier McKinney, Grant Delpit, are worthy of that first round pick, and you have a guy like CeeDee Lamb who you didn't think would be there, sometimes you just take the best player that's on the board because you don't know where your team's going to be in 3-4 years, and at least you have that talent, someone who you're confident in moving forward. So I agree with you, and especially with Isaiah Simmons too. I didn't think Isaiah Simmons would ever be an option for the Cardinals, and I thought that they would for sure go offensive line. But then when he's sitting there on the board, it kind of makes you reconsider, and you have to be able to pivot. Yeah,
exactly. And you brought up the quarterbacks drafted before, and I won't keep you on this topic too long. But it seems that we got 3 that went to teams that we did expect. I think everyone expected Burrow to go to Cincinnati. Everyone was saying Tua to the Dolphins. And whether you like it or not, Justin Herbert to the Chargers was mocked very often. And then you have the other 2 who go to teams that, like you said, we never in a million years would think they're thinking about drafting a quarterback early. So what do you like about the fits of those players and where they ended up? I mean, Tua and Burrow.
You're just trapping me into a question to answer to Justin Herbert. What do I think of the fits of the quarterbacks?
Well, you got Love and Hurts to talk about as well. The question's more about them. Like, where do you see them fit in the long-term plan? We've beaten Burrow and Tua over the head, however many times.
That's true.
Justin Herbert.
He can use a beat over the head too.
Yeah. So all right, I'll spare you from.
I can't think of anyone better to give it to him than this guy, Matt Brodsky.
I'll smack him up.
I'll spare you from the Herbert talk. Where?
So and I get.
We can't not talk about it.
This kid, I don't know what this kid wants to talk about. Is he going to leave the show?
I get what you're asking. Well,
He's got to talk about it.
Listen, I can go on forever about Jordan Love to the Packers, and I don't know what your guys' opinions are on that, but like I mentioned, tomorrow morning I'm releasing an article in full-length description about my thoughts on that pick.
Okay.
Because I have very strong feelings about it, and I don't agree with it at all. I think the Packers are ridiculous. So I'll save that. And then for Jalen Hurts, I think it's also a terrible pick. I mean, and it's similar for the Packers. It's nothing against Jordan Love or Jalen Hurts as players. I think that maybe they both end up good, but just to those teams, it doesn't make sense. I mean, the Eagles they took Jalen Reagor in round 1, which a little bit of a reach in my mind. So we'll see if he pans out. They definitely needed receivers, but they went with him, and then a quarterback who, Richard, we spoke about this. The best case scenario for the Eagles is that Jalen Hurts never plays. Yeah. So why are you wasting a second-round pick on a guy that probably won't play as long as Carson Wentz stays healthy? They just signed Wentz to a huge extension.
Unless you plan to use him in some other form alongside Carson Wentz.
A lot of people say, he could play
not something that teams aren't doing in today's NFL.
Yeah. A lot of people say, you could throw him in the Taysom Hill role. But me and Matt, actually, we had a whole discussion about this the other day. So just to give a little background, what Matt said before, best case scenario, Jalen Hurts never plays quarterback for the Eagles. second best case scenario, Carson, it sucks to say this is part of a best case scenario, but Carson Wentz does get hurt and Jalen Hurts plays and he's pretty good, and they made the right decision, with an injury-prone quarterback, drafting that guy in the second round and him getting in there and succeeding. Worst case scenario, Wentz gets hurt and, Jalen Hurts sucks. But then there was the other point that people make that, use him like a Taysom Hill. But is that a second-round pick? Is Taysom Hill a second-round pick because he makes, 3
Well, I would say if quarterback is the most important position on the field, then that would make your backup quarterback pretty fucking important too.
Hey, and the Eagles know more about that than anyone.
But no one takes backup quarterbacks in the first and second round.
Maybe they should.
If you have an injury-prone quarterback like Carson Wentz, then maybe it's more valuable to that team specifically.
And
they should have signed him to a massive contract extension. I see a lot of people make arguments that the backup quarterback should be valued higher than it is, but you just can't value someone who might not play a snap if your quarterback is healthy. But the Eagles more than anyone know how valuable a backup quarterback is. They won a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback.
That's true.
But yeah, it's just
I think it makes more sense for the Eagles.
I do think it makes more sense
than the Packers for sure.
Yeah, even though Aaron Rodgers is old.
I can't wrap my head around the Packers pick.
And what pisses me off about that is, we have Aaron Rodgers saying before the draft, it'd be nice if we pick a skill player in the first round, for the first time in 15 years. They don't pick a single receiver or run. I think they picked one running back, right?
They took a running back in the second round.
They don't pick a single receiver. They pick a tight end that might play fullback. And look, he's 30. He's going to be 36 years old. He has years left of playing great. You see Drew Brees, Tom Brady, all these quarterbacks are playing into their 40s. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be that type of player. I think everyone thinks that. Why are you preparing to move on from him now? There's going to be 40 other Jordan Loves in the next 5 years. I don't think he's anything special. He's got a big arm. He threw 18 touchdowns and 18 picks or something stupid. He did not put up great numbers. I feel like he's totally based on potential, and it's just such a short-sighted move for a team that went 13-3 and went to the NFC Championship and lost because they didn't have the offensive weapons to compete against the 49ers' stout defense, and then they go out and they don't help it. I don't understand. Why are you trying to move on from Aaron Rodgers now? And you know what? Well, maybe Aaron Rodgers plays the next 4 or 5 years and Jordan Love gets traded like Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know. But then, it's even worse.
It's a waste. It's a waste.
Yeah. So that's what I just think. Jordan Love is not this can't-miss quarterback prospect. I don't care where you're drafting, that you need to go out and get him in the first round to succeed Aaron Rodgers. There's going to be better players than him and more like him in the future when you should be thinking about it. When he's not.
They traded up to get him too.
Yeah, even worse.
Yeah, they traded up for him. I was speaking to my friend who's a big Packers fan about this, and I was asking him, is there conversation amongst Packer fans, within the Packers community, that Aaron Rodgers is done? I know I certainly don't think so. From I'm a Jet fan, so I obviously watch a lot of Aaron Rodgers, but I don't watch every single game, every single snap. And he was like, no, he's not the same quarterback he was. He's a little bit more conservative now. He throws the ball away. He's not squeezing throws into tight windows. He doesn't have as much confidence as he used to, but still, top 5 quarterback in the NFL easily. And he didn't understand the pick either.
Well, I think that, and not to cut you off, but I mean, based on what your friend is saying, I get it that he's not doing the things that we're used to Aaron Rodgers doing, maybe with just putting the team on his back and going off and having these crazy games. But I think that's by design, because Matt LaFleur comes in and they have a more balanced offense and they're more successful after a 13-3 season by having Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams out of the backfield. And it seemed like they were basically able to extend Rodgers' career as, by balancing out the offense and just running a cleaner, more functioning system than just Aaron Rodgers going out there and playing hero ball.
Yeah.
And now they're just moving on.
You tell me.
And I sorry, Richard.
No,
but
you
I was like, if that's the case, right? Like Aaron Rodgers is becoming more conservative, like he doesn't have to carry the team as much anymore, then the next logical thing to me would be surround him with players that are really good to like complement his just like good decision making. Maybe like turn his conservativeness into something more dynamic, and they completely didn't do that.
Yeah, you can maximize his career like to be longer by doing that.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of gonna say. Your friend saying he's a little more conservative, this and that, and maybe part of that is that the only weapon to throw to is Devontae Adams, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling drops every pass, and Geronimo Allison can only run a deep route. Like maybe it's because they don't have anybody.
Yeah, let's be honest about these guys. Like everybody likes to, like they score some touchdowns here and there, some big plays, but that's just because of Aaron Rodgers.
It's only because of Rodgers. Exactly. They'll make any wide receiver look good.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's crazy. It's like.
And you got to think he's the kind of guy that's going to piss him off. Like don't you want to keep him happy more than anybody else on the team?
And look, I don't think he's going to be like a Brett Favre who doesn't speak to Aaron Rodgers the entire time. I think he'll be helpful to Jordan Love, but
maybe he feels bad because he went through that. He doesn't want to have, he doesn't want to be on the giving end of that now. But I mean, I honestly I would be so pissed off if I was Aaron Rodgers. If he is mad about it, I don't fault him at all. And then the running back in round 2, the two positions that they needed the least were quarterback and running back.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
And they were decent players on the board too, receiver-wise.
When is A.J. Dillon is his name, the running back? He could be a good player. I don't know much about him. He went in the second round. I'm sure he's pretty good. But when is he going to see the field? Yeah, Jones and Williams are a great combination.
And what is he going to do more than what they already get?
Oh, Jones had a great season.
Running back, it's committee league now. Why are you drafting a running back high to be part of a committee?
That you already have a strong committee.
Yeah. When you need help somewhere else on the offense. Tackle. They needed a tackle too.
Only thing I could think
lost
is
Balaga.
Yeah, they lost a right tackle. Rodgers has 4 years left on his contract. They can cut him after this season. They can cut or trade him, and he has no dead cap or guaranteed money. So they have an out after this year, which I guess that seems to be what they're lining up to do. But why would you do that? It's Aaron Rodgers.
Did Matt LaFleur come here and say we need to tear it down and move on from Aaron Rodgers because he's not my guy? Get the fuck out of here, then. Get the fuck out of here.
That's not going to happen.
My friend who's a Packers fan suggested that maybe him and LaFleur don't get along.
Well, fuck LaFleur then.
Yeah, I'm sorry, then you're out. They went 13-3 to the conference championship game. It worked. Just add a couple pieces and go again. We've seen now more than ever quarterbacks at 42, 41. They're still producing at a high level. The all-time greats like Breeze and Brady, but Rodgers fits right into that category.
You add an O lineman and a receiver. If they draft a receiver round 1, like the guys who were on the board, if they draft Josh Jones, who fell in the second or third, whatever, now you're talking. Now you're building around Aaron, and they just go the complete opposite direction. Yeah, and it's horrible.
And look at who teams like the Bucks and the Saints, who have older quarterbacks. They drafted offensive linemen. They drafted receivers. The Saints got a linebacker, Zach Bond, who's going to probably start. Guys that are going to contribute right away.
The Bucks the last thing they needed was a receiver. The last thing.
And they got a good one.
They got a good one for the slot receiver.
And if the Packers really wanted some insurance for Aaron Rodgers, they could have done exactly what the Saints did. Sign Jameis Winston.
Yeah. And also, Phillip Rivers in Indianapolis, he's an older quarterback on a 1-year contract. The Colts' first 2 draft picks were a wide receiver and a running back. who are going to probably start right away. Jonathan Taylor is really good. I know they have Marlon Mack, but they'll find a way to use him. And they picked who'd the Colts pick in the second round? With the wide receiver. They picked early in the second round.
Was it?
No.
Where did he go?
Is it the Boise State guy or something like that? Some random.
They picked
school?
Michael Pittman, 34th overall.
Yes.
So like guys to help Rivers right away, and like Rivers on a 1-year deal. They picked Jacob Eason, I think, later on in the draft, which the Packers could have done. Pick a late round quarterback or a mid round quarterback. It just is crazy that they still have this guy who's 36 years old and they're already looking to move on from him.
That's what I'm saying with Jordan Love. Like, there's 400 Jordan Loves in the goddamn world.
Yeah. Who knows
Sorry.
where you're going to be in 3 years after Rodgers' contract? Don't worry about that now. What they think is they did it with Favre, that they have to do it again.
Yeah, right? They got
And that's what everyone who's defending it is like, dude, they fucking did Favre to Rodgers. What happened there? How'd that work out? It was one time. It's not just a thing that you live by now.
And also, Favre was like, I can see Rodgers playing like another 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Rodgers didn't make his debut when he was like 27.
I don't think Rodgers is going to end his career with Green Bay.
And probably not. But I just pulled up Jordan Love's stats quick, and like, I'm not gonna base his entire work off of just these base stats. But I mean, just looking at the numbers, he got significantly worse this past year.
Well, when I was reading about the quarterbacks, Utah State, while obviously they're not like that great of a school to begin with, from the year before to this past season, they lost like all of their guys on offense.
Yeah, he went from 32 touchdowns and 6 picks to 20 touchdowns and 17 picks.
Yeah, the team
went down
took a
30
big
yards
step
per
back.
game. I just don't know how whatever. I'm not saying it's his fault. I'm not saying he's not talented, but I don't know how you look at that and say, we need to get this guy to be our successor to Aaron Rodgers. Just don't see. It's not like Aaron Rodgers falling, and when they had Brett Favre, because Aaron Rodgers should have been picked number 1 overall that year.
He was like a surefire guy.
Yeah, and he slid. Alex Smith went number 1, and he never should have been there. Jordan Love could have been available, I don't know, today. No, he obviously would have gotten drafted, but he was never like a consensus top guy. He was just, he's got a big arm, he's athletic, this and that. He needs to put it all together, though. Like, he's one of those.
How many?
Why?
If you put Aaron Rodgers on the block right now, or if you cut him today, like how many teams do you think would make a run at him?
Well, not every single team, but
Every team that has an uncertainty at quarterback.
But even if you are sort of certain at quarterback, you have to consider Aaron Rodgers.
Like, I don't think the Jets would like try.
No.
like the Redskins.
But like there'd be way more of a market than there was for like
for like Cam Newton and Jameis Winston,
and even Brady though. Like Brady
the Patriots
realistically had like 2 suitors.
Yes.
because
the Patriots would just sign Aaron Rodgers.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's exactly
I mean,
what
also you have to consider the cap space because
That
the
is
Patriots
terrifying.
wouldn't be able to.
So let's not talk about that. I mean,
But,
now
if
he's
he was
probably
on the
he's
trade
probably what he's
market, you'd have to they'd get offers from at least 15 teams.
That's probably what he's thinking now. He's probably like, cut me, and I'm
yeah.
going to go play for Belichick.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I wouldn't be surprised if Rodgers wants out. Go to someone who's going to actually put the effort in to build around you and get the most out of your career.
It's sad.
All right. Well, I think we covered that.
Yeah. Well, there were some good draft picks.
Yeah. Let's get into the Jets, and then I'll say what I want to say.
Alex has been waiting for this one. Jets had an interesting
big
draft.
Jet fans. Take the floor.
I think everyone.
You sound salty.
Who?
No, it's all you guys. Let's see.
Nobody can complain with the first
Propaganda.
with the first round pick, Mekhi Becton. I know a lot of people were Tristan Wirfs fans. A lot of people were not sold on Becton going into this, and I still see people saying all the same stuff, like the face value didn't look any further than a Bleacher Report blurb. he's kind of raw. He's not ready. He can't play day one. Like, yes, he can. Shut up. Fucking get over it. They picked Mekhi Becton.
I think it's a valid concern.
No, it's a valid concern, but people think he's like actually undraftable. You watch him play; he like has technique. He like can play football. He's not an idiot. There's a reason why he's like a highly touted prospect. It's just crazy to me.
But the biggest reason why is because of his physical traits.
Yes, of course. And obviously that's not going to get you all the way to the promised land, but it's a great start for an offensive lineman for sure. Yes. I think everyone should be happy with at least their first 2 picks with Becton and Mims. And then, you get later in the draft and you start to – that's when the divide starts to come in. Do you have anything to say, Alex, about those 2 early picks?
Yeah. Becton I'm excited about. Like you said, it's not anything to go crazy about. Do I think maybe what's his name? Wirfs would have been more safer pick at 11? Sure. But, you have a general manager who is a former offensive lineman, clearly values the position, made big investments this offseason, signing offensive linemen. And he clearly is very, very laser focused on offensive line and making it good, which I've been extremely vocal about. That's priority 1 for the Jets. So I'm fine with the pick too. I'm not gonna go crazy if he starts off if he's not incredible right away, because I know he might be a little bit of a project and might take some time to develop into his true potential. But yeah, it's something I'm keeping a close eye on for sure. And Mims in the second round, I'm hype about. They traded back, like we covered earlier. Traded back from 48, got an extra pick for that 48th pick, and we were still able to get the guy that we probably would have taken at 48. So that's hype. He sounds like he has a chip on his shoulder. He sounds like he wants to prove people wrong. And then as we get into the later rounds, I like this draft overall from the Jets, but we can get into the later rounds.
Yeah, just quick, I'll talk about Mims and Becton. The thing, I liked Becton over Wirfs, and the reason why is because he actually played left tackle in college. Tristan Wirfs was a right tackle, I believe, and a lot of people think he'd be better suited at guard. He has the same problems as Becton does. He's big, he's really athletic, and he has problems with his technique, and he's just not as physically gifted as Becton is. So it's been so confusing to me, and I've said this many times, I think, on here, how many people will lower Becton's rating because of all those aspects, like being raw and needing some work on his technique, and then prop Wirfs up like he's the best one in the class. So it was just confusing to me. So when it came down to those 2, I would have been fine with either, but it's just like it's not like Wirfs was this can't miss guy over Becton. In my opinion, I think they were both pretty similar, and I think Becton has the higher potential anyway. So I like that they went with him. He's a big guy.
Yeah.
He's by all accounts a really hard worker, and that's all you can ask for. I think he's going to be good for us. I hope he can start from day 1. I think he'll be able to. Mims, I've been saying Denzel Mims since day 1 of this offseason, man. I've been wanting Denzel Mims. A lot of people thought he would be gone in the first round. It got to the point where talking about pick 48, people were like, don't even bring up Mims. Like, he's not an option. A lot of people were talking Pittman, Chenault, Claypool, guys like that. All of those guys end up going before him, which was crazy. Mims, he's a really athletic. He's tall. He has one of the longest catch radiuses out of all these guys, even longer than Claypool, who's like huge. He's like 6'5". He has longer arms than him. He's another raw type of player like Becton. I think you see a lot of this trend with the Douglas picks. He goes for these like really athletic sort of, guys that need a little bit of work. It's a high risk, high reward, But I think these two first picks were, less risky than the later ones, obviously. But you couldn't be happier as a Jets fan.
Yeah. It was interesting for me to see from it was like night and day, free agency to the draft. Free agency, it seemed like Douglas was taking a really conservative approach, focusing on positions of need, not giving out huge contracts to showy players. And then in the draft, it seemed like he was swinging for the fences. So I hope it works out.
Yeah.
I'm nothing to criticize so far.
So after picking Mims late in the second at pick 59, the Jets started with 3 third-round picks. They ended up trading one of them down to the 4th round and getting an extra 2 picks from that. So in the 3rd round, they picked 2 players. And the first one was a huge surprise, given that Jamal Adams and Marcus May, probably one of the best safety tandems in the league. I won't say they are the best because, there might be one off the top of my head I don't know, but they're definitely one of the top duos in the league. And they went and drafted a safety, Ashton Davis out of Cal, who I didn't like it, obviously. I didn't like it at first. I saw safety pop up, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like the one thing that we're actually strong at on the team, you go after a safety. But like anyone, you go and look at the player more, you read about them, you see other people talking about them. Seems like he's a very versatile piece. He can play slot corner, he can play regular corner, safety, strong safety. He's even played weak side linebacker. He's extremely athletic. He was like a hurdle track champion or something. You watch him on film and he's so fast. It kind of seems like a longer play to maybe replace Marcus May eventually. But I think Greg Williams, I really came around to these 2 defensive picks in the 3rd round because they seem to really fit the Greg Williams style. If you want to say something about Davis before we get into the other guy, and I say why I like these 2.
About Davis, I know that there's a lot of people that are saying that Davis is just a stud. That was my initial reaction too. Was why are we drafting a safety when 2 of our best defensive players are safeties? But we can move on because what I really want to say about the Jets draft is the overall approach.
Okay.
The thing with Davis that I'll say, and maybe to defend the pick a little bit, he's not someone who's going to push to start right away. He could probably use a little more learning the game because he is a crazy athlete, like you said, Richard, where most of his skills is just based on just being ridiculously fast, can cover a lot of ground, and can hit really hard. But I think he would definitely benefit more from learning football a little bit better, the understandings of how to approach tackling and how to cover it a little better. But from that perspective, it seems like a good fit for someone who you don't need a safety to step in right away, and you can just let him develop, on his own pace. And I don't know, for Marcus May, I know he's good. He's been injured a couple times throughout his career.
Yeah, last year he was fine, but he's definitely had some injury issues before that.
So yeah, I mean,
and
maybe
he's
we'll
old.
see
He's 28.
He's 28. Wow.
Yeah, he was an old rookie.
Wow. Okay, so I mean, yeah, maybe if Davis develops a little faster than expected, both of them can fight it out or compete. But I mean, Davis's upside, I think, is some of the highest upside in the draft, just from a pure athletic standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
If he puts everything together, he's going to be really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and, one more thing about Davis. If he's not playing every snap on defense right away, kind of sounds. It doesn't sound ridiculous, but something that is really important that's not that thought about is special teams. And if he can play on special teams and kind of learn how to play football a little bit, like you said, he could be very impactful from the start without even playing every snap on defense.
Definitely.
Yeah. No, I've definitely come around on it, and it's you gotta in these mid rounds, get those, sort of hidden gems, make the long play. You can't expect immediate production and starting production out of a third round pick. First round, yes. Second round, okay. Once you get to the third, fourth round, that's the problem with the draft. A lot of people, we got this guy now and this guy, he steps in, this. You can't expect that out of these young rookies going in the later rounds.
Of course, and that's like what I said when you don't know where you're going to be 3-4 years. In the middle rounds, if there's a guy like Ashton Davis, who I didn't think would go round 3, I thought he'd be a early round 2 pick.
Mm-hmm.
If you see a guy like that still on the board, there comes a point where he's just that good, you take him and figure it out.
And
you got to play a little 4D chess.
Yeah, and to bring it back to Marcus May, he's going to be 28, going to be a free agent. They want to pay Jamal Adams. Are you really going to, if say May goes out there this year and has another great season, you going to pay Adams $18 million and May $8 to $10 million and tie up that much money in your safeties? I don't think that's smart. I like tough. Marcus May. It's been great to see a second round pick actually be a solid player for us, but it's just not.
That could be it.
Right,
it could be.
A
little forward thinking
use of assets, and then the next defensive player the Jets pick, and you see a trend with a lot of these picks. Like I said, another high upside, didn't put it all together in college, but you saw all the really great flashes. His name is Jabari Zuniga, I believe you pronounce it, from Florida, and I see all right, and I understand. The Jets draft a Florida edge in the third round a year ago. He doesn't play a snap in the NFL. He gets cut before the season, Ja'Kai Polite. So to come back the next year and pick another edge in the third round from Florida, I can see how that might be a turnoff to some people. And I want to say to all those people who are using that as an excuse against this pick, I want to say, fuck you. Because that is the dumbest argument ever. They're completely different people. They're completely different players. They're just not the same person. And I think, if anything, it should speak volumes about the type of person that this guy is compared to Ja'Kai Polite to be drafted by an organization who cut that same player, Ja'Kai Polite, a year ago to be able to convince them. I feel like most teams would just be like, we're not doing that again. Fuck it. We're gonna look elsewhere. He met with the Jets 5 times and convinced them and showed them that he's actually about this life, and he's actually a hard worker and can play in the NFL. So I think that says something about him to show he's not the same edge out of Florida in the third round. So don't use that as a criticism, because it's the same thing with Quinnen Williams being compared to Leonard Williams, because their last names are Williams and they play D tackle. Everyone thinks that they're the same player. It's just the natural flow of thought of your thought process.
It's like offensive lineman from Iowa.
Yes, exactly. Offensive lineman from Iowa. It's just, I understand the need to want to go that route, but you gotta think deeper with this stuff, people.
Mark Sanchez and Sam Darnold.
Yeah, it just pains me to see that used as a genuine criticism against a player when you've probably never even heard of him until 2 days ago. So it looks like another Polite to me. You don't fucking know who he is.
There's a name. There's some kind of fallacy associated with that, where it's it's not related at all, but it's easy to compare.
I get it. And look, I said fuck you, still fuck you, but I'm sorry, but it's just I can't stand that type of criticism because it's just lazy.
Yeah, it's a little ridiculous to compare the two just because they went to the same school.
Yeah.
What if you found out that they were best friends last year and they were inseparable and you would always see them together on campus? Would that change your mind at all?
Probably. I don't know. But I'm sure they did their research on him. I don't think that's the case. But
yeah, you gotta hope they wouldn't make the same exact mistake 2 years in a row.
What if Polite went back to Florida, changed his name, and then re-entered the draft?
Jabari.
He just wore a mustache to the interviews.
So yeah,
it's a new GM for the Jets. They wouldn't know.
They kind of followed a similar path in another way. Zuniga was definitely a more highly touted pick, not going into this offseason, but maybe last year. He had a really good season as a junior. and then he had a high ankle sprain this past year, which really lowered his stock. Unlike Polite, who teams started to see he was an actual moron, and his stock fell.
He's the guy who said he didn't watch film of himself, right?
Yeah. So that's him. But what I like about these two picks is that when you read about them, you find out how many different positions they can play. Like in their he can play all along the D line. This guy Davis, he can play all over the secondary. And I think in a Greg Williams defense, when you watch what he did last year, how often is he rotating D linemen around? How often? How many times do we say, "Where's Quinnen Williams? Why isn't he on the field?" Because he loves to just put all these different guys in at different positions. You look at the edge one play, it's a different guy. You look in the secondary, who's playing safety. Jamal Adams is playing linebacker. So I think he really loves to mix and match these players and confuse an offense where you say that guy's normally a safety, but now he's playing corner. This guy normally does this. Yeah. So I think it definitely it fits the mold of what we heard when Joe Douglas said he has grades based on talent and fit in their scheme and stuff like that. I think these guys are definitely good scheme fits for Greg Williams. Right. And I look, just to go back to the whole Polite thing, people were saying Greg Williams wanted Ja'Kai Polite cut the day they drafted him. He hated that guy. He wanted this guy Zuniga. So I think that I think if you look at it like that, you should see that it says more about this kid than just he went to the same school and played the same position.
Yeah.
Read into it.
Yeah.
Call him this guy kid. He's probably my age.
I think the Zuniga pick was I wasn't crazy about it. He has his shortcomings. Against really good tackles, he was not that effective. He kind of projects as more of a Jordan Jenkins type, where it's he would be really good if. True, he's on a 1-year deal. But Jordan Jenkins would be a really, really key contributor to a defense where there was an absolute stud on the other side of the ball, and he can go against the worst tackle out of the two. So having two of those guys, one is gonna get one is gonna get beat by really good offensive tackles in the NFL, most likely. So I wasn't crazy about this pick, but taking a step back, looking at the Jets draft as a whole, you can really see that Douglas was doing exactly what you said, drafting guys that fit the system.
He drafted 5 captains in a row. Sorry to cut you up. He drafted 5 captains in a row. So that's the type of guy he's looking for. I'm not saying I was just saying you were talking about following his plan and drafting a specific type of player.
Yeah.
I think that goes into it.
That's a nice tidbit. But it's clear that he has a lot of faith in Sam Darnold, because something we were talking about off the air is such a deep receiver class. Why did we only take one? Sam Darnold has so much potential, get this guy some protection, which it seems that he is trying to do. Jets general managers of the past would have been draft wide receivers out the ass with such a deep class, and then forget to address the offensive line, and then the receiver doesn't even matter because Sam Darnold doesn't have 3 seconds to throw the ball, and then it all just goes to shit. So it seems like Douglas really has his ducks in a row here, where he's I'm gonna address the offensive line first. That is gonna be addressed no matter what, and then that should give our really, really high ceiling quarterback some time to, weapons to get open. Maybe even if the weapons aren't fantastic, we have a really good quarterback who's going to find a way to make those weapons better. And then on defense, it's I understand Greg Williams' scheme. I don't need the best defenders in the world, but I need guys who can play all over the field. I can mix and match them. I could let Greg do his thing, and our defense doesn't need to be studly, let up 7 points a game, like top 5 in the league. But it just needs to be like bend, don't break, give the offense a chance, keep Sam in the game, and like let the kid do his thing. And that's why I like this draft. I don't like this draft because we took like fucking studs across the board that are just gonna make our team incredible from the get-go. But it seems like there's a plan, and it's like I can see the way all these guys fit into the system.
Yep. And that was a good point you bring up of him. You know, he obviously doesn't need the best receivers to be able to play, because the good games he's had for the Jets is when he's had protection and he's still throwing to those trash weapons that we all talk about, you know? Like his rookie year he has, you know, Robbie and Jermaine Kearse and whoever else. You know, this year he had Crowder and Robbie and whatever, and like people are still complaining about the weapons. But his best games when the offensive line holds up are with those weapons. You know, we've seen him take advantage of that when he just has time to throw the ball. But yeah, I think Douglas really, he sticks to his beliefs. That was one big criticism of McCagnon. He would go into the free agency and the draft with, you know, beliefs that he had, and then just throw them out the window when stuff wasn't going his way. He just didn't have a plan and like a disciplined mindset. I think one of my favorite picks of the draft is the second offensive lineman we took. Everything I've read about him now, like I'm shocked that he fell so far. I know he went to like a lesser school, but he has like pretty good technique. He's athletic. He's supposed to slide into guard. He played tackle, but he's athletic. He finishes. He dominated against Clemson, who was like a top team. Like you watch him like bulldozing these guys over, and they're not like small guys. They're, you know, big Clemson linebackers. Like, I think he can compete from day one, and we got him in the later round, along with Bryce Hall, who a lot of people who saw as a top corner prospect coming off of surgery. Get him in the 5th round. My biggest complaint was the quarterback, but whatever. You have 9 picks. You're not going to go 9 for 9. You're just not.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a weird pick.
It's just like, if you're gonna go for
a
solid backup quarterback, you know, I would go with like a Fromm or that other guy, you know, Eason, whatever his name was. I feel like when you want a backup quarterback, you don't want to go for those, you know, big arm, needs to put the rest together, can't read a defense, like, you know, it's on potential. I think you want that backup quarterback to be more like a game manager, that you throw them in and they can execute the simple plays. Even
that
if they
definitely
don't
would
have
been Fromm.
Yeah. Even if they don't have a rocket or whatever, like, you know, they just are smart. They can get it done. They're never gonna, you know, throw guys open. But it's just like, you put in a backup, you need the offense to run reasonably well. I don't know. I don't think James Morgan can be a backup this year. If he got in the game, he would probably be awful. Is my prediction. But
he'd be just like Luke Falk.
Yeah. Or, you know, our backup is David Fales. Like, whatever.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
whatever.
If that's what he projects
to fill
as,
up
then
the roster at that point.
Yeah. I feel bad, Matt.
If he projects as Luke Falk, then is a bad pick. I don't know anything about the guy, but
feel bad, Matt.
No,
I haven't had much to say here.
No, I wasn't. I'm not comparing him to Luke Falk. I'm saying because if he's your backup quarterback, Luke Falk was a rookie last year thrown in. So like, what more would you expect? Like, if he was your backup this season, James Morgan, and he had to play if Darnold got hurt, it would just be like what Luke Falk did, and he was terrible because he's not ready to play.
I guess I just expect more because Luke Falk was actually the worst quarterback I've ever watched play football.
Yep.
But I guess.
We can't rate. All the draft grades come out. You know, every sports outlet is giving their draft grades. None of them matter because in 3 years they'll all be
looking
different.
I was looking at NFL.com's draft grades. They gave every team like straight A's, like 20 out of 30 teams, just like A minus, A plus, A minus, A plus. I was like, what the hell is this shit?
It was a pretty, I think, deep draft overall. Not just receivers. Like I think the offensive lineman class was pretty deep. There were a few late round running backs that were taken that I think were good. Quarterback, whatever. Defensive backs though, like corners and safeties, it seemed like there were a lot.
It was a good draft.
Yeah,
it
was
was
just like I think a good overall draft. So it's hard to fault any of these teams unless they're like the Packers, who are just making like dumb, actual personnel decisions. Like,
as long as you
position.
drafted for positions that you needed and took guys who can fill in, there's a chance. There's a good chance that some late round guys pan out this year.
Yeah.
But if you're picking quarterbacks in round one, or like the Patriots having 25 picks, it felt like they were on the clock every other pick.
Yeah.
And they didn't pick a quarterback. I don't get it.
Some of these people are in over their head.
We
not
know
call
Belichick
Bill
loves to
fucking,
but he's stubborn and he likes to prove people wrong.
Yeah, he wants to win with Jared.
He took a fucking kicker in round 5 with Jake Fromm still on the board. Just take Jake Fromm.
He wants to win with this guy Stidham. That's what he wants to do. Tom Brady left. He's like, I'm going to win 10 games with this idiot.
I don't think it's going to work.
I don't think so
Again, like
either,
you said, don't
thinks.
discount Belichick, and I get it. And I would never. I'm one of Belichick's biggest supporters over Tom Brady, who was a product of the system. But Stidham is trash. Like I can't see that. And we don't know how Belichick develops quarterbacks. He picked Tom Brady 20 years ago and hasn't had one start since. So he could easily be wrong about Stidham.
Well, I mean, do you put Garoppolo under his resume?
And Brissett.
He was a second-round pick.
Yeah. It's true.
I guess. I mean, yeah, Brissett was pretty good. But, I mean, we've never seen Belichick really draft a quarterback high, is my point. And he still did it.
He has played and been solid, you know?
Yeah. It's better than most quarterbacks drafted can say.
Yeah.
And Garoppolo just played in a Super Bowl, so.
I have no expectations for Jared Stidham.
No.
And whether or not you love him or not, he is a question mark. And to not pick a single quarterback I don't agree with that.
I think it's safe to say, or at least I'll say, that Jared Stidham will probably beat people's expectations just because of the system.
And this isn't a knock on Belichick, because I do like this player, but it's so Belichick. Like they used their first draft pick in the second round on a safety who went to a D2 school. He's from Lenore Rhine. And I like him a lot. I think he could be pretty good, but Belichick has to pick the D2 guy first. Come on.
Of course. The Patriots. Was this guy on people's draft boards at all?
Yeah, he was. Yeah. He was a second, third round pick. He was one of a top 5 safety in the class. So, like I said, I'm not surprised that he went early, but of course it's the Patriots who are the ones to take him.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, I guess they picked a kicker in round 5. Gostkowski is not there anymore, but come on. What are you doing? You're trying
see.
I
don't have it in me to doubt the Patriots yet.
Me neither.
It's a little bit of I guess it's like Stockholm syndrome. They've just been destroying me for the past 20 years.
Yeah. I thought Jake Fromm would have been a great fit for Belichick and what the Pats do.
Well, he was hyped up.
He
what
slid a
happened
little
to him?
bit. He fell. He went to Buffalo in the 6th round, I think, 5th or 6th. He's a very smart guy, a smart quarterback who doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He's just kind of physically limited with his arm strength and his mobility. He's not really gonna extend plays or kind of throw the ball too far down the field. But I think his upside is an Alex Smith kind of game manager guy. So I don't know if he's gonna be someone who can take a team to a Super Bowl. But in a Belichick offense, I felt like it would have been a perfect fit for a late round. Just take a flyer on him. But he definitely has a ceiling where he's not going to be. I don't think he'll ever be a long-term starter. And we saw, the Bills picked him, so he's really not going to play.
Right. Emergency backup.
Yeah.
But he was very hyped up before this past season, right? He was right up there with Trevor Lawrence and stuff.
Well, he wasn't. I mean, not Trevor Lawrence type hype. He should have came out last year. I think that would have been better. He went back to school and he didn't have that great of a season. And I think a lot of his weaknesses were kind of highlighted more because the talent was a little less in Georgia. But yeah, I mean, he definitely his hype died down for sure. If he came out last year, I think he would have went a lot higher.
It's interesting
Who-
that the
who you
Bills
talking-
took him.
Jake
Fromm?
Fromm. Yeah.
He's,
I was saying that the Pats should have just taken a chance on him. He seems like a guy who Belichick could get a lot out of. Smart
Yeah.
player like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it really just seemed. He said, it wasn't by design. Whatever. It seemed like it was. It seemed like they were like,
Of course, it was by design. It's like we want Jarrett Stidham to prove everyone wrong because I'm Bill Belichick. It could happen, and if that happens, it's even more of another feather in his hat. But
I wouldn't bet
he
against.
can't be right every time. He can't be right every time, and he's honestly had some suspect drafts the past couple of years that get overshadowed by Tom Brady. And
They don't have great drafts, but what they do is they find like these veterans and these
Yeah.
low-key players that just come in and can contribute the way they need them to.
right.
They don't need the studs, but it's so weird. Like those great teams, like the Seahawks, that every year they're just drafting the most random players. And
They did it
but-
again this year.
Yeah, but they're one of the most successful drafting teams of the last 10 years. Like if you look at their drafts, like they hit a lot more than a lot of other teams. But every year it seems like we're like, who is that? Like,
I didn't know their first round pick. They picked. You're talking Seattle, right?
yes.
Seattle took Jordan Brooks in the first round.
Oh, linebacker, right?
Yeah. And Darrell Taylor in the second. They traded up for him. I mean, these guys, as an outside linebacker, Jordan Brooks, I didn't really have him much on my radar, but I could have just missed him. But I didn't hear a lot of talk about him.
I mean, some of their best players of the last however many, like Richard Sherman was a 5th-round pick. Russell Wilson was a 3rd-round pick. Pretty sure Bobby Wagner, he wasn't a high pick, was he?
I don't think so. Yeah, they have a good scouting department. I definitely would trust them to make the right decisions.
Tyler Lockett, where was he picked?
They traded up 2 years ago for Rashad Penny in the first round, who no one had him going in the first. And he hasn't really panned out that much. He hasn't been too effective. It's gotten hurt a couple times, but like you said, I mean, you can't hit on every pick. But yeah, there are certain franchises that you trust more than others based on their track record for sure.
Whatever happened to the linebacker that Belichick was in the rain with?
He was undrafted, signed with the Dolphins.
Sucks.
So he didn't impress Belichick. That's what that meant.
Yeah,
Belichick
right.
probably
That would-
walked away. It was like,
That sucks if I'm that guy.
yeah, yeah. He probably thought he was locked in.
Yeah, he was like, wow, I'm going first round.
But, yeah, so we talked about a lot of some talking points with the Giants. I mean, we could touch on the Giants for a little.
I liked their first 2 picks.
I thought they had a really good draft from the top half, at least. Picking Andrew Thomas at the first offensive lineman off the board. I know, Richard, we've had this conversation before that Thomas was the number 1 tackle on the board for so long throughout the season, throughout the early offseason and mock drafts. And as it got a little bit closer and closer, you saw people putting Wills first, Wirfs, Becton. So Andrew Thomas for the Giants, I thought he was like the safest tackle option out of the big 4, just in terms of being able to like start right away and has the least amount of like holes in his game. Just kind of reliable, like you know what you're getting more so than the other guys. So I wasn't surprised to see him go first. I thought he was the top offensive lineman throughout most of the draft process. And then you kind of get these guys thrown in, switching up names in mock drafts just to kind of put some new content out there. But I definitely like the pick at number 4. And then Xavier McKinney at the top of the second round. I think that is a home run pick. I'm shocked that McKinney fell that far. Maybe it's a little bit of a concern because every team did pass on him, so it's something to keep an eye on. But again, like we mentioned, with the talent in the draft, people were bound to get pushed down. So being able to steal McKinney like that on a team that has no playmakers on defense, really nobody of note on the defensive side of the ball at all, I think he can start right away and be the face of the defense.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, and I'm sure many Giants fans, and even myself, a Jets fan who does not like the Giants, I saw McKinney on the board going into the second, and I was like, he's going to the Giants.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
there's
for sure.
no shot he's falling past them. So, yeah, I mean, I'm on record saying how much I love Andrew Thomas. I know a lot of people were upset about it, and I think it's because of what we saw with, like, the mock draft sort of pushing him down and him kind of losing his lust as a prospect just because he's been the best for – look, he started for 3 years at Georgia. He played right tackle his first year, left tackle the past 2 years. He plays every game. Like, he's been good, and people have known he's been good. He's been a highly touted prospect for a while. So it's prospect fatigue, people. It happens. People talk about someone for so long that they kind of talk themselves out of them. And then when new guys pop up that are like, ooh, look what he can do. Oh, I like that, you know.
Exactly.
I think it was a great pick at number 4 overall, as safe as you can get. And I think he's still going to be great. It's not a lot of people, you know, oh, he has a high floor. They think that means he has no high ceiling. He still has a high ceiling. He's athletic. He's long. He's strong. Just because he's not Mekhi Becton or Tristan Wirfs athletic-wise doesn't mean he's not athletic enough. Like,
right.
That's I don't want to. I'm sorry. I don't want to get off topic with it because I think with rankings, people think like, oh, if you're the 3rd ranked, that means like you're not good compared to like you could still be good and ranked below other people who are good. Like,
Yeah,
that's a
definitely.
whole thing. But
I mean,
McKinney,
anybody who's upset with that pick as a Giants fan is just they love to be miserable. Like,
yeah,
there's
they
no-
just they just have their eyes set on one thing and they just don't want to accept anything else. But yeah,
I think they
McKinney-
hit home runs with their first 2 picks. And then they took 4 linebackers in the later rounds of the draft, which,
Yeah.
I mean, listen, do you want to load up on a bunch of defensive players, hope 1 or 2 become starters or somebody
One of
that
them,
you can play?
I see one of them listed as a D end, Carter Coughlin.
Okay,
So
yeah, I've got
maybe he's
outside linebacker on ESPN. So.
okay. I'm on Sports Illustrated, so yeah. But
I mean,
they took a lot
outs-
of
whatever,
front seven guys.
pass rusher, whatever. And then what I also like what they did in the 3rd round, they double dipped on tackles, taking Matt Peart from UConn. He's good. He's a good guy who like has the upside. He's definitely not going to start anytime soon, but as more of like a developmental player, somebody. Because you have Andrew Thomas who's going to start, and then Nate Solder is still on the team, so you figure he's going to start. So to put Peart behind a guy like Solder to eventually try to take over the position for a team that needs offensive line help, I think taking another offensive tackle early in the draft was probably a good move or like a safe play.
Yeah. I wonder what they do with Solder and Thomas because Thomas can play left tackle. That's like his more natural position. Solder has always played left tackle in the NFL. Do you start Thomas on the right side to give him an easier job? Look, hey,
That's a
right
good
tackle
question.
is
I don't
not
know.
right tackle. Is not easier than left tackle. Defenses put the better rusher on that side because every team is saying our left tackle is the best offensive lineman. So defenses, they have brains too. They say we're going to put the best edge rusher on the other side. So it's not
I
an
don't
easy.
know. I don't know what I would do. Like, would you move Solder to the right side or just put Thomas there?
I mean, don't you want your rookie to play the position he's going to play for? You want him to play left tackle for 10 years. Don't you want him to
But
play
Solder's
there?
also bad.
Yeah.
So you're going to try to move a declining player to a brand new position against the better defensive ends?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It's definitely an interesting. It's a good, argument to have with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I guess do we?
Yeah, I
want
don't know
our
what I
stud
would
rookie
do.
to play on the right or left? Damn it. But
And this shit left tackle that we can't not start because he's making the most money ever and he's terrible.
yeah.
Nate Solder.
But with the pick of McKinney, that gives them a nice safety duo. They still have Peppers, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you got McKinney and Peppers. New York, where the teams of the safeties.
Yeah. Overall, good draft for both New York teams on paper. It looks like
we do a lot of similar stuff. We draft a tackle, they draft a tackle. Last year, we drafted D tackle, they drafted D tackle. We have a young quarterback, they have a young quarterback.
Yeah, the Giants just have
teams have been terrible.
Awful.
They're just rebuilding from the ground up. Yeah. At least the Giants have a running back, though, which is something to be said.
Interesting. Wait, you don't like LaMichael Perrine?
No, I do. I think they filled a big need there for the Jets. I don't know anything about Perrine. Is it Perrine or Pirine?
I don't know. I said Perrine.
It's the guy in Washington, Samaje Perine. He's also a running back. I don't know if they're related.
I was like, there's someone else.
I remember watching him one game.
Who?
And I was blown away.
Samaje
Perine.
Oh, Samaje, the Redskins guy.
When he was in college, yeah. And I was like, he's my favorite.
Same thing with Clyde
I
Edwards-Helaire.
haven't followed him at all.
We completely forgot about that pick.
Oh, well, I watched Edwards-Helaire completely just dominate college football for like weeks. So
that was we watched LSU Alabama at Churchill at Meany's, I think it was. Was it that game or was it somewhere else?
Yeah, we watched that game at Meany's, and then he was good in the chip too. No.
Yeah, no, he was really good, but he wasn't like there was. Surprising that the Chiefs went with him, though, because you kind of had like a big three running back situation with Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, and DeAndre Swift. And then for Edwards-Helaire to be the first one off the board, it was a little surprising.
Yeah,
but I think that they're all going to be good.
I remember us talking about Edwards-Helaire early on, saying he was not supposed to be so high of a pick, but I guess they just went with the production in college. I remember
when we were at Meany's, you were like really into him, and then you looked up like a mock draft, and it was during the football season, so granted it was very early, but we looked at like a 3-round mock draft, and he wasn't even in the first 3 rounds.
You know the Vikings had like 16 picks?
Wow.
Fucking ridiculous.
But you saw what the Chiefs GM said? He said he just texted Pat Mahomes and said, "Who do you want?" And he responded with Clyde, and then they picked Clyde.
Is that fact?
It's kind of ridiculous.
The GMs, I watched the GM say that in an interview. I don't know like if he's lying or not, but he said that.
It's definitely a position of need for the Chiefs.
And then the Packers GM called up Aaron Rodgers, and he said, "Hey, go fuck yourself." And we said, Jordan Love. So that's how you keep a quarterback happy.
I'm just skimming through just some selections here. And another really, I think, questionable team, especially with their first 2 picks, the Rams. They lose Todd Gurley and Brandon Cooks.
R.I.P. Darrell Henderson.
Yeah, and then their first 2 picks are Cam Akers and Van Jefferson, who I feel are just worse versions
who are they?
Of. Cam Akers is a running back from Florida State. Van Jefferson, who is his father is actually the Jets wide receiver coach, and he played in the NFL. Sean Jefferson. I liked him.
Darrell Henderson's gonna break records next year.
I like Van Jefferson. He's a really good route runner, and he's just like, he's not crazy athletic, whatever. He's just one of those guys, solid player. But it's just teams that do that when they like lose players and then they just replace them with worse versions in the draft. Like it reminds me of like the Jets drafting D. Milliner when you lose Revis. Like you don't just go and replace them with a rookie because you lost that guy.
To the Rams' defense, though, they are severely strapped on money with their cap, so they had to get rid of Gurley and Cooks, and rather than having nothing there, they replace them for younger, cheaper options. I mean, who knows what these guys are going to turn out to be? At least they're addressing positions of need. They needed a running back.
Their first pick in the draft is going to be a running back? Like
they lost Todd Gurley. They have to replace him.
You don't need
what else do they
Todd
need?
Gurley to be good. You could be anything.
They're filling needs. I didn't mind that draft pick. They had to get rid of Gurley for the cash, and they replaced him. And we'll see. I don't like that they didn't pick offensive linemen because they had a terrible offensive line. But, I mean, I think I'd mock them picking a wide receiver at least. I mean, you lose guys and you replace them.
No. It's just like it's sometimes it's weird to me. You're just like replacing them with and like you're using your assets on these young players. Like, are you drafting them just because you lost Gurley and Cooks? I don't know.
That's called drafting for need.
Okay, you're right.
I mean, the Jaguars, they traded Jalen Ramsey. They drafted C.J. Henderson.
Yeah, speaking of the Jaguars, I just got to their list here. They had an interesting. They threw one of the curveballs of the first round, taking C.J. Henderson at Chason, but Henderson at 9. No, I don't think anyone expected that. And I do like the Chason pick opposite Josh Allen. We talked a lot about how we think he's, not really a sure thing. He's a very raw as a pass rusher. He's more athlete than he is football player at this time. But to put him on the other side of Josh Allen, who is already looking like a stud pass rusher, their defense just got really fast.
And if C.J. Henderson pans out, that's a good pick. And then I like their draft a lot. They took Chenault also in the second. They're walking away with 3 guys who I thought were first-round picks.
Yeah, Matt actually mocked Chenault to the Jaguars at 20. He ends up going there at 42. I thought that's. I was happy they put some weapons around Minshew.
Chark and Chenault could be a great one too.
Yeah, and Chenault, they're very different players too. Chenault is really kind of he's a gadget guy. He's like a better version of what I think people thought Cordarrelle Patterson would have been. You get him the ball with blockers in front of him, you get him the ball in space, and he's elite with the ball in his hands. Like, he is like a running back. He's a receiver. He's like a do-it-all type of player. I really like that for the Jaguars. Good job, Matt. We did that last year too. We had, I think I had Metcalf to the Seahawks, but it was in the second round instead of the first.
I mean, this is the kind of content you get when you tune into the Memo, is just gurus making the right picks.
Yeah, any other quick picks you liked, like maybe later round picks that were like nice, like, or maybe an early round?
I thought the Cardinals had a great draft.
Yeah, I was just thinking of
being able to
Jones.
get Josh Jones in the 3rd round. I didn't think he'd fall that far. We had him in the 1st round in our mock.
Yeah.
And then taking Isaiah Simmons, who's going to, right away. And then we focused a lot on the Cardinals for the offensive line because Kyler Murray got sacked 48 times to lead the NFL. So they needed offensive line help. But their defense was also terrible. It's like they don't really have anyone outside of Chandler Jones and Patrick Peterson. So Isaiah Simmons can step in right there and give them a whole new dimension to the defense. They got lucky that he fell to them and be able to still take an offensive lineman like Josh Jones. I thought was really good.
And I like the Browns not messing around and going Wills at 10. They got 2 tackles now with, what's his name there? Conklin. The Bengals got Higgins in the 2nd. That was a nice pick. Because one of his comps has been A.J. Green, so I thought that was funny.
Really?
Yeah. Lanky.
Also, the Denver Broncos, I mean, god damn it. This team, they got so much better this offseason with the free agency and the draft. I think they're one of the, as long as, and this is a big if, but if Locke does turn into be the quarterback that he looked like he could be last year, and he is the answer for them, they got so much better. They took Jerry Jeudy fell to them, and then they got KJ Hamler in the 2nd round. One
of the best center prospects, probably the 2nd best center prospect in the draft, Cushenberry.
And the tight end, Al O. He's just like a receiver, basically. He's like an Evan Ingram type body. He's obviously not as good. He's like a lot more of a project. But his upside is he's fast and strong and big. So, if he works out, they have weapons everywhere on the offense.
They got your boy, Mutai.
I mean, he's obviously a question mark. But if he can pan out, they focus so much on the offense because their defense is always good. That they're really
they already have a fucking Sutton signed Gordon.
Lindsey, Font. They're doing a lot of good things over there.
Really good offense.
Yeah, that's how you surround.
It's all going to depend on Drew Lock.
It's how you surround your Young quarterback with talent.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's pretty much, I think, my biggest takeaways and big things that I liked. I didn't like nothing.
The
I liked everything.
The Raiders taking Ruggs, the first receiver off the board.
I mean, the Raiders, Ruggs, and then Damon Arnett. Like, what are they doing? What are they doing over there in Vegas now?
3 wide receivers, Lynn Bowden and Brian Edwards as well.
I'm a big Lynn Bowden guy. I think he could work out. But he's also like, I mean, if you wanted Bowden, you're going to take him. Wouldn't you rather like a CeeDee Lamb kind of guy as a receiver? Ruggs, the two of them are just like speedy, and they have already, what's his name? Hunter Renfrow.
Yes, he's all right.
I don't know.
I thought the Dolphins, after their Tua pick, had a pretty questionable draft. Austin Jackson at 18. I don't love him.
He went early. They took a running back, didn't they? Oh, no, they didn't.
No, they took no running backs.
They traded for Burrito.
Yes. But
The Colts got a lot better. Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor.
Yep, that's good for their offense. With,
Immediate offensive help.
I mean, the Vikings, man. I can't even begin to read. Their first 4 picks were really good picks, I think. Jefferson, Gladney, Ezra Cleveland, and Cam Dantzler.
Yeah.
They replaced both their corners in one draft.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Dantzler, I'm surprised he fell.
Yep.
Gladney, I thought was a little early, but he's
His name is Cam Dantzler.
Yeah, Cameron.
Cameron.
Dantzler. Boss.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, but who's a bigger boss than Bryce Hall? Nobody.
A couple people for sure. The Bucks, I'll leave it on this because we're kind of just rambling now. But the Bucks, I thought, did have a good draft for guys who can step in right away too. Obviously, Tristan Wirfs and then Anton Winfield, the safety. It's their secondary needed like one more piece or two. And we touched on him earlier. Tyler Johnson, as a guy who can just have literally no expectations with Evans, Godwin, Gronk, and OJ Howard, to just throw Tyler Johnson in there is just like icing on the cake. And a slot guy for Brady is always going to be something to watch.
He converted from the Miami Heat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, he sucks at basketball, so switched over.
I'm going to say one guy who I'm very happy for, Mr. Chase Claypool, gets drafted by the one team in the NFL that drafts a stud receiver every time they draft one. So they saw the talent that I saw in Mr. Claypool, and the Pittsburgh Steelers took him in the second round at number 49 overall. The Steelers churn out great wide receivers. Do you see who have they had in the past 10 years? You go from Santonio Holmes to Mike Wallace to Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Martavis Bryant, Emmanuel Sanders, Hines Ward, Martavis Bryant before he smoked 10 blunts before a game.
Eli Rogers.
Yeah, bro. No, but you know.
No, you're right. You're totally right. That's a wide receiver factory over there.
Yeah, they know good wide receivers.
Plaxico Burress.
Yes. Before the gun. Claypool.
Yeah, they must have seen something there.
I like that pick. And you know what sucked so bad was the Jets traded out from 48. And I was like, I think him and Mims will still be there. Gone at 49.
Claypool went right away, yeah.
Yep. But you're right. We're
Mims
kind of
was there.
Yeah, man. I'm excited. But you're right. We're kind of just rambling about picks now. So maybe this is the sign to call it, especially after your Wi-Fi cut out before. I think God was giving us a sign.
Yep. Let's
Shut
take
the
it
fuck
over to
up
Fortnite.
about the damn draft. Yeah, so thank you for tuning in. Let us know what your favorite picks were, your least favorite picks were, whatever your team was, if you enjoyed their draft, what you liked and didn't like about it. Tell us why you think the Jets are the best team in the NFL now.
All right, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for tuning in, guys.